imagine sitting in this, like, pristine, perfectly retro 1950s style diner.
Oh, yeah, like the classic Americana vibe.
Exactly. The chrome on the counter is gleaming. There's a jukebox playing some doo-wop track. Your milkshake is perfectly chilled. And right beneath your feet, bolted directly into the foundation, is a remote detonated thermonuclear bomb.
Wow, just casual.
Right. Oh, and the company that owns the diner actively worships an eldritch demon.
I mean, it really just shatters the whole illusion of safety pretty instantly, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because we are so, culturally conditioned to let our guard down when we see a white picket fence or like a neon milkshake sign. It's this visual shorthand for innocence.
Oh, completely. We see fries and think, oh, this is safe.
Right. But when you look at the actual architecture of corporate control, those comforting symbols are often just camouflage for something completely devastating.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are exploring a small, super foggy seaside town called Joyceville, North Carolina.
A town that gets completely upended.
Yeah, we're dissecting the catastrophic events brought down upon this quiet community by a deeply, deeply sinister conglomerate known as Blind Corp. And I am just incredibly eager to get into this because the material we are looking at today is completely wild.
It really is a terrifying case study in the manipulation of an entire populace. And for you listening, the source material we're working from today is this stack of transcripts from a highly fragmented investigative audio drama and podcast known as Excuse Us.
Yes, and reading through these transcripts, I mean, it feels like trying to put together a puzzle where half the pieces are just actively lying to you.
Oh, absolutely.
We are looking at eyewitness testimony, these deeply unsettling corporate orientation tapes, and police records that make absolutely no logical sense at first glance.
Just total administrative chaos.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly how Blind Corp manipulated the residents of Joyceville. We are going to expose the hidden purposes behind their corporate projects, look closely at how the quirky working class staff of a local diner perceived this incoming doom, and then finally trace the sequence of events from the town's total collapse to the twisted fate of its survivors.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this.
So, to really understand the manipulation here, you first have to understand the canvas that Blind Corp was painting on.
Right, the town itself.
Exactly. Joyceville is like your quintessential picturesque coastal town. It's the kind of place that's heavily reliant on local industry, where families have these super deep generational roots.
Yeah, like where everybody knows everybody.
Right. The biggest news on any given week is, the high school football game. And there's this serene, almost sleepy quality to the foggy harbor. But beneath all that tranquility, the town was facing some serious economic stagnation.
Which, of course, makes them the absolute perfect target. Because Blind Corp doesn't just, roll into town with armed guards and armored vehicles.
No, that would be too obvious.
Right. They roll in promising infrastructure, jobs, and a massive revitalization of classic Americana. And the crown jewel of this whole public relations campaign is the Super Awesome Diner franchise.
Such a disarming name, too. Super Awesome Diner.
I know, it's so aggressive in its cheerfulness.
Yeah.
They build these diners around the edge of town, featuring the jukeboxes, the quote-unquote signature awesome fries, and this intensely nostalgic aesthetic. It looks like a safe haven, like a return to the good old days.
But then you get to the transcripts, and they reveal this frantic, intercepted conversation between two Blind Corp employees that just completely upends that entire wholesome narrative.
Oh, Adam and Gary?
Yes, Adam and Gary. You have Adam, who is clearly like this corporate fanatic, and his coworker Gary, who sounds just incredibly stressed out.
I would be too, honestly.
Right. In this audio file, Adam casually reveals that the Blind Corp board of directors doesn't just worship profit margins. They literally serve an ancient eldritch demon that exists outside of time.
Just a standard Tuesday in corporate America.
Exactly. And he tells Gary that these super awesome diners weren't just placed on, random cheap real estate. They were constructed in a highly specific geographical configuration.
Which is just wild.
Right, a perfect pentagram surrounding the entire town of Joyceville.
Wait, okay, stop. You were telling me a publicly traded corporation built a literal demonic summoning circle out of milkshake stands?
That is exactly what I'm telling you.
How does a conglomerate even hide a massive pentagram on their city zoning permits? Like, someone at the City Planning Commission had to look at a map at some point and notice that the new franchise locations formed a giant occult star, right?
Oh, they absolutely did notice.
Yeah.
And that That is where the mundane reality of corporate corruption intersects with the supernatural horror of Blind Corp.
The payouts.
Yes, Major Simone was heavily bankrolled by Blind Corp. When a massive company is essentially funding the town's infrastructure, paving the roads, and floating the entire local economy, city planners are instructed to just, approve the permits.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't ask why the real estate acquisitions form a geometric pattern when the checks are clearing. So the diners serve this dual purpose. Metaphysically, their placement acted as beacons or tethers, drawing ambient energy to summon these dark forces.
But practically, they served a much more terrifying physical purpose, which is what really got me. Because in the corporate orientation tapes, the CEO refers to the diners as possessing defensive measurements,
Such a clinical term.
which has to be one of the most chilling euphemisms I have ever heard in my life. Because what he's actually talking about are thermonuclear devices built directly into the foundations of these restaurants.
Yeah, the engineering logistics alone for that are just staggering.
I can't even imagine.
Blind Corp basically anticipated that their biological experiments in Joyceville might, spiral out of control. These bombs were a failsafe.
A failsafe that wipes out an entire zip code.
Exactly. If an outbreak occurred, they could just remote detonate the pentagram, instantly vaporizing the town, containing the biological threat, and leaving behind nothing but a tragic industrial accident for the press to report on.
But, like, you can't just ship weapons grade plutonium and C4 through standard restaurant supply chains, right?
No, definitely not.
Because health inspectors are walking through these kitchens, regular delivery drivers are dropping off flour and sugar. To get the bomb components into the diners without raising any suspicion, Blind Corp forced the integration of this new product called hawk juice.
Hawk juice, yeah, it was marketed as a proprietary energy drink.
And the locals absolutely hated it. Like, the transcripts include these hilarious but grim complaints from residents saying it tasted like donkey poop.
Which is very descriptive.
Very. But Blind Corp didn't care about the flavor profile at all, or the sales figures, because the liquid in those crates was literally just a smokescreen.
Right.
The heavy lead-lined crates of hawk juice were actually a guise to smuggle the detonators, the explosive materials, and the radioactive components right through the front doors of the diners.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, and the manager of the main diner, this woman named Katherine, who goes by Miss D, was routinely forced by corporate mandate to accept these massive, incredibly heavy shipments under the guise of an inventory push.
The brilliance of this operation, if you can call it that, is how it weaponizes nostalgia.
Oh, for sure.
Nostalgia makes people feel safe. It transports the mind to a simpler time when concepts like corporate bioterrorism just didn't exist in the public consciousness.
Right, you're looking at a jukebox, not a bomb.
Exactly.
Ah.
By wrapping their dark magic and their literal explosives in the aesthetic of a 1950s diner, Blind Corp short-circuited the town's natural threat response. The residents are standing around complaining about the bad taste of an energy drink, entirely oblivious to the fact that they're standing on top of a nuclear trigger.
It's brilliant and just deeply, deeply evil. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's like a Trojan horse, right?
Oh, that's a good comparison.
But instead of a giant wooden horse, it's a 1950s milkshake stand. And instead of Greek soldiers inside, it's C4 and eldritch demons. Are we sure this isn't just like a heavy-handed metaphor for aggressive franchise capitalism?
Well, what's fascinating here is how Blind Corp seamlessly blended literal demonic ritual with mundane corporate spreadsheets. It makes the evil so banal and easy to overlook. It's not just corporations hollowing out small towns and replacing them with manufactured comfort. It's corporations using that manufactured comfort to hide literal atrocities.
Which leads us right to the atrocity itself. The whole reason Blind Corp needed those failsafe bombs hidden under the fryers in the first place, they were running something called the HAWK initiative.
Right, the Human Augmentation and Weaponization Kinetics Project. This was the true horrific nature of Blind Corp's presence in Joyceville.
We get transcripts from these elite scientists like Dr. Susan D, who we later learn is actually Miss D's sister.
Which is a huge twist.
Yeah, and Dr. Adele Front-Resitz. Their mandate for the HAWK project was to mutate human DNA to create the ultimate soldier.
Standard sci-fi villain stuff, but with real consequences.
Yeah, they were chasing enhanced strength, accelerated speed, heightened intelligence. But as we know, you can't just rewrite the human genome without consequences. The side effect of their proprietary virus was catastrophic.
It essentially hyper-accelerated the human metabolism to the point where higher cognitive functions degraded entirely.
So they just became feral.
Exactly. The infected didn't become super soldiers, they became hyperviolent, insatiably hungry, flesh-eating monsters. Biologically speaking, they were zombies.
And the most disturbing part to me is that Blind Corp didn't accidentally leak this virus. This wasn't some, broken vial in a lab scenario.
No, it was entirely deliberate.
They actively manipulated the town by exposing the population in these calculated escalating stages. First, they introduced microvariations of the virus into Joyceville's water supply just to establish a biological baseline in the townspeople.
Using the town as a giant petri dish.
Right. And then, for the grand finale, they plan to release a fully synthesized, aerosolized strain integrated into the rain at the first annual Fall Festival.
They literally turned a community celebration into a mass casualty bioweapons test.
It's so dark.
And this brings us to one of the most insidious aspects of the entire operation, which is the corporate doublespeak utilized by Blind Corp's CEO, Liam Newton Johnson.
Oh man, this guy.
In his internal orientation tapes, he insists, with this very calm, polished authority, that employees are strictly forbidden from using terms like zombies, monsters, or the undead.
Because that would be bad for morale, obviously.
Right, he claims that sort of terminology is reductive and unprofessional.
Instead, he mandates that the flesh-eating, mutated townspeople must be referred to as audience members.
The psychology behind that rebranding is just chilling. Johnson claims the infected haven't been mutated, they have ascended to a higher state of being, evolved specifically to watch the grand performance of Blind Corp.
Calling a zombie outbreak audience engagement is it's like a surgeon calling a fatal heart attack an unexpected resting phase on the operating table.
That is exactly what it is.
It doesn't just hide the truth, it completely rewrites the legal and moral reality of the room. If the victims are just an audience enjoying an ascension spectacle, then the corporation haven't committed a war crime or an act of mass murder. They've simply hosted a highly engaging experiential marketing event.
That is the ultimate corporate gaslighting. By forcing the employees to adopt this sterile, marketing-driven vocabulary, Blind Corp absolves its own workforce of more responsibility.
It makes it okay for them to do it.
Exactly. The language sanitizes the violence, it makes the apocalyptic sound mundane, which allows the people working on the spreadsheets to just ignore the blood seeping under the laboratory doors.
It really makes you wonder about the jargon we accept in our own daily lives, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like for you listening, think about the emails sitting in your inbox right now. When a company announces a strategic realignment, we all know it means mass layoffs.
Yeah, or downsizing.
Right, or when they talk about synergy, it often masks a hostile takeover that will just gut a community. Blind Corp just took that exact same corporate impulse, using polite words to mask devastating actions, and applied it to a biological apocalypse.
And this gaslighting extended way beyond the boardroom. Blind Corp knew that people would eventually notice the side effects of the water supply tampering.
People aren't completely blind.
Right. People started getting sick, acting erratic. A resident named Old Man McDonald got too close to uncovering the truth of the experiments, and he was murdered to keep him quiet.
Just taken out.
Yeah, but rather than just burying the body and pretending nothing happened, Blind Corp enacted this counterintelligence strategy based entirely on absurdity.
This is where we have to talk about the police transcripts, specifically Detectives Lake and Pool and their forensic analyst, Steve.
Oh, the detectives.
Yeah.
Blind Corp, working in tandem with the deeply corrupt mayor, Major Simone, needed to derail the murder investigation into Old Man McDonald. So they flooded the zone with absolute nonsense.
Total misdirection.
They manufactured a smokescreen so bizarre that it completely jammed the gears of local law enforcement.
Mayor Simone somehow convinces the detectives that McDonald wasn't killed over corporate espionage, but rather that he was the victim of an underground, genetically modified gerbil racing syndicate called the Midnight Runners.
I mean, from a counterintelligence perspective, it is a brilliant tactic.
It's hilarious, but it works.
Because if you feed the police a conspiracy about an eldritch corporation testing bioweapons, it sounds like a movie plot. But an ambitious detective might still follow the money.
They might look into the permits.
Exactly. But if you feed them a conspiracy about an illegal gerbil racing ring and provide them with planted evidence and eccentric suspects, including this elderly woman who is obsessed with a collection of rare spoons.
This is the spoon lady.
Yes, you just exhaust their resources on sheer ridiculousness.
The absurdity becomes the camouflage. The detectives are spending their days interviewing people about spoons and tracking down gerbil pedigrees. They are so distracted by this comedic, low stakes mystery that they completely ignore the town's failing infrastructure, the strange tasting water, and the massive crates of explosives being wheeled into the local diner.
By the time the real monster showed up, the town's investigative and defensive capabilities had been completely dismantled by nonsense.
But the blindness of the corporate elite and the local government basically became their own undoing. Because while the detectives were chasing gerbils, they completely ignored the people actually serving them their coffee. Which, let's shift our perspective to the view from the diner counter.
The staff at the super awesome diner.
Right. The people actually on the ground, wiping the tables and slinging hash browns, they saw the truth forming long before anyone else. But what's fascinating is how they each perceive the incoming doom differently, based entirely on their own unique backgrounds and traumas.
That's a great point.
Let's start with Jimmy Cooks, who is known affectionately around town as Sizzlin' Jim.
Jimmy is the veteran cook at the diner. He served overseas, survived heavy combat, and has extensive experience with chemical warfare and its aftermath.
Which perfectly explains why, when the town eventually collapses, he successfully fights off a horde of these audience members using literally nothing but a cast iron frying pan.
His survival instincts are incredibly honed. But more importantly, his trauma and his military background gave him this heightened situational awareness.
He noticed things others didn't.
Exactly. While the rest of the town thought the air just smelled funny or the water tasted a bit off, Jimmy recognized the specific olfactory signatures of chemical tampering. He noticed the subtle behavioral changes in the regular customers before they just disappeared.
He knew what a cover up looked like because he had lived through them in the military. Jimmy actually tried to warn the town, right?
He did.
He called into a local radio show, frantically trying to explain that Blind Corp was playing with monsters and hiding these dark secrets. But because he was a working class cook with known PTSD, society just dismissed him as a paranoid conspiracy theorist.
Then you have Luna McFluff Nutter.
I love her name.
It's great. The transcripts describe her as a whimsical, highly eccentric waitress who talks to animals and lives in her own, slightly detached reality.
Kind of off in her own world.
Yeah, she fancies herself an amateur sleuth, mostly investigating minor neighborhood grievances. But crucially, she happened to live right next door to Dr. Adele Front-Russets, one of the lead scientists on the AJWK project.
And when Dr. Russets is found dead in his apartment, the police, who are, completely distracted by their gerbil theories, quickly rule it a straightforward suicide.
They don't even look closely.
But Luna doesn't buy the official narrative at all. Aided by a stray Persian cat, which, if you read between the lines, almost acts like a familiar or a guardian spirit guiding her, Luna just slips right past the police tape.
Because she is viewed by society as just the eccentric cat lady, she is practically invaluable to the authorities. No one considers her a threat.
Which is her superpower.
Exactly. This invisibility allows her to dig through her neighbor's apartment undisturbed. She uncovers the cryptic HRK documents hidden in his belongings. Because she is naturally curious and fundamentally untrusting of authority figures who dismiss her all the time, she pieces the clues together. She is one of the first people to realize that the entire town is a petri dish for genetic alteration.
And we absolutely cannot overlook Dylan.
Dylan is crucial.
Dylan is a 17-year-old busboy. And the niece or nephew, Dylan uses they, them pronouns, of the diner manager, Miss D. Dylan, is navigating a tremendous amount of personal turmoil. They're struggling with gender dysphoria and dealing with the messy, painful fallout of their parents' recent divorce.
And the tragic irony is that Dylan's parents are Dr. Susan D. and Kevin, both of whom are deeply embedded in the HAWK project.
Which is just awful.
Though Dylan has no idea that their family is basically responsible for the town's impending doom.
Dylan channels their frustration and feelings of alienation through what they call civil vandalism. They go around at night tagging Blind Corp buildings with spray paint, desperately trying to force the complacent townspeople to look at the corporate decay spreading around them.
Just trying to wake people up.
Right. And Dylan is the one who remarks that people in town are disappearing like a bird's fart, which is a vivid phrase, just vanishing into thin air without anyone raising an alarm.
Dylan's perspective is vital here. Because they are grappling with their gender identity in a town that champions traditional 1950s Americana, Dylan already feels like an outsider.
They don't fit the mold.
They don't fit into the glossy postcard image Blind Corp is trying to sell. Therefore, they are totally immune to the nostalgia trap. When you exist outside the accepted binary of a society, you become acutely aware of the rigid, often hypocritical structures holding that society together. Dylan sees the cracks in the facade because they're constantly being pushed against the wall by it.
Which stands in heartbreaking contrast to Miss D herself, Katherine Lynn D, the manager of the super awesome diner.
Catherine represents the tragedy of complicity through willful ignorance.
Yeah.
We learn that she has a very troubled, wild past, littered with mistakes and minor crimes. Her sister, the brilliant Dr. Susan D., pulled some strings to get Catherine the management job at the diner. It was a lifeline for her, a final chance at redemption and stability.
And because Catherine is so deeply desperate to hold on to this normal life, the routine of selling pancakes, balancing the till, and pouring coffee, she actively chooses to ignore the massive warning signs right in front of her face.
She just shuts it all out.
When Dylan tries to talk to her about the disappearing townspeople or the donkey poop conspiracies surrounding the hawk juice shipments, Catherine shuts them down completely. She yells at her staff to focus on the morning breakfast rush,
She needs the illusion of classic Americana to be real because her own survival depends on it.
acknowledging it would ruin everything.
Right. Acknowledging that the crates in her storeroom contain bomb components would mean acknowledging that her sister placed her in the center of a kill zone. The psychological weight of that truth is just too much, so she focuses entirely on the mundane tasks of hospitality.
So, what does this all mean? We have a war vet, an eccentric cat lady, and a rebellious teen figuring out a massive corporate bioweapon plot while the police are chasing gerbils. Does it take being an outcast to see the monster in the room?
Honestly, yes, because the status quo never protected them in the first place.
Wow, yeah.
If society has already marginalized you, you do not possess an inherent trust in its institutions. When the mayor says the water is safe, when the CEO says the mutations are just audience engagement, the marginalized people are the ones who look at the physical blood on the diner floor and say, no, that is a monster.
They don't buy the PR.
They aren't invested in the lie of the American dream because they were never fully invited to participate in it. They are the invisible workforce, and their invisibility gave them a front row seat to the apocalypse.
That is a dark but incredibly accurate reading of the situation. And it leads us directly into the inevitable, brutal collapse of Joyceville. The timeline of the town's final days accelerates with just terrifying speed.
The sequence of events is meticulously logged in the transcripts, beginning at exactly 5:42 a.m.
At 5:42 a.m., a heavy shipment of hawk juice arrives at the loading dock of the super awesome diner. Catherine, still maintaining her desperate grip on routine, accepts the delivery and signs the paperwork, completely unaware that nestled among the pallets of foul-tasting energy drinks are the final armed components for the thermonuclear device resting in her foundation.
Simultaneously, across town, the HAWK virus reaches its absolute breaking point within the population.
It's all happening at once.
The aerosolized strain, which was released during the first annual fall festival as planned, takes full effect. The incubation period ends abruptly. The town breaks down into sudden, violent chaos as the infected citizens rapidly mutate into hyper-violent audience members.
The diner, situated right on the edge of town, is quickly swarmed, and this is where we witness the tragic, visceral end of Katherine Lynn D, the real Catherine.
As the horde breaches the diner, her illusion of a normal life shatters instantly.
She fights desperately. The transcripts describe her barricading the heavy diner doors, wielding kitchen utensils like spatulas, meat cleavers, just to fend off the infected townspeople she had been serving coffee to just hours prior.
So grim.
But there are too many of them. She is overwhelmed. And in her final agonizing moments, as the monsters tear into her, all the pieces finally fall into place in her mind.
She realizes the truth.
She realizes that her brilliant, successful sister, Dr. Susan D., the woman who supposedly saved her by getting her this job, was intimately complicit in engineering the very virus that is currently eating her alive.
Catherine dies with the horrifying realization that her second chance at life was nothing more than a staging ground for a corporate slaughterhouse. It is an ultimate devastating betrayal by her own blood.
But the narrative of Joyceville doesn't end with Catherine bleeding out on the checkerboard linoleum. It pivots on a massive psychological twist. Catherine dies in the diner, but Dr. Susan D., the scientist who helped orchestrate this nightmare, survives.
Susan survives the initial outbreak because she is carrying an experimental, unstable, and unsynthesized version of a vaccine she developed.
So she has protection.
Yes. Surrounded by the collapse of the town, she makes a calculated, chilling decision. She steals her dead sister's identity.
She basically strips the name tag off her sister's corpse, metaphorically speaking, and assumes the persona of Miss D, the naive diner manager.
Her motivation here is complex. She isn't just trying to hide, she's trying to infiltrate.
Right.
Susan needs to manipulate the Blind Corp field operatives sent in to clean up the mess so she can gain access to their secure underground bunker designated Terminal C.
Because Susan wants revenge. Amidst the chaos, Susan comes to believe that her child, Dylan, was killed in the outbreak.
The grief just completely shatters her corporate loyalty.
She blames the Blind Corp executives for pushing the timeline and demands what she calls a blood debt. By posing as the harmless, traumatized diner manager, she manages to get escorted into the bunker by the extraction teams.
This initiates a grueling, claustrophobic 6-month period of isolation beneath the ruins of Joyceville.
6 whole months underground.
Yeah. Susan, maintaining the facade of Katherine, is subjected to repeated interrogations by an operative named Agent Thomas Wilson.
And Thomas is deeply confused. Because the thermonuclear bomb beneath the diner, the failsafe meant to vaporize the outbreak, didn't go off.
Right, it failed.
He is interrogating the fake Miss D, trying to figure out how a simple waitress with a criminal record managed to disable a remote detonated nuclear core.
And Susan has to sit across from him day after day in this sterile concrete bunker, playing an elaborate game of psychological chess.
It must have been exhausting.
She spins these long, picturesque, folksy stories about her quirky diner staff. She talks about Sizzlin' Jim's cooking, Luna's cats, and her dear nephew Dylan.
Think about the immense, crushing emotional weight of that deception. Susan is sitting in an interrogation room, recounting the daily lives and mundane struggles of these working-class people, knowing with absolute certainty that her own scientific arrogance, her own proprietary virus, is the reason they died gruesome, violent deaths.
Sociopathic, almost.
She is weaponizing the memory of the staff she killed and weaponizing the memory of her own dead child just to keep Thomas off balance and maintain her cover.
It is a profound psychological burden, and it shows the depths of her fractured psyche. Meanwhile, the dynamic inside the bunker begins to shift dangerously. There is a second Blind Corp agent stationed with them, a woman named Doris.
Over the course of those 6 months, it slowly becomes apparent that Doris is not just a standard corporate security agent.
No, not at all.
She is a zealot. She is a member of a secretive faction within the company known as the Fold.
Doris is a true believer in the Eldritch corporate vision. She doesn't view the destruction of Joyceville as a tragic industrial accident or a failed experiment. She genuinely believes the corporate rhetoric.
She drank the Kool-Aid.
She literally sees the infected audience members roaming the surface as having achieved glorious spiritual ascension.
Doris eventually pulls a gun on Thomas. She realizes that Thomas is asking too many logical questions, trying to actually solve the mystery of the bomb, which means he lacks the blind faith required of a loyal company man.
A tense standoff ensues.
And Thomas, acting on pure survival instinct, is forced to shoot and kill Doris.
With Doris dead, the bunker compromised, and realizing that Blind Corp is never sending a rescue team for them, Thomas and the fake Miss D really have no choice.
Time to go up.
They unseal the heavy blast doors to Terminal A, climb the access ladder, and finally emerge back onto the surface of Joyceville.
And they step out into an absolute wasteland. The quaint, picturesque, foggy seaside town is just gone. It is a burnt skeletal ruin. The sky is dark, and everything is covered in a thick, choking layer of gray ash. It's like a biblical apocalypse.
As they stand in the ruins of what used to be this super awesome diner, Thomas tries to process the sheer scale of the devastation. He remarks, rather pathetically, that the blocky, ruined foundations remind him of his son playing Minecraft, building worlds from scratch, tearing them down to build new.
He's just trying to cope.
He is desperately grasping for a silver lining, suggesting that maybe they could rebuild the town.
But Susan, who has entirely dropped the folksy Catherine act the moment they reach the surface, looks at the ashes and tells him, sometimes to make something new, you have to burn the old to the ground.
It is at that precise moment that Susan reveals her true identity to Thomas.
The ultimate mic drop.
She strips away the final lie. She tells him she isn't the diner manager. She is Dr. Susan D, the architect of the virus. And she tells him she orchestrated this entire 6-month survival run for one reason, to avenge the death of Dylan.
Thomas is absolutely stunned. He is reeling from the betrayal, realizing he has been protecting the monster this whole time. But before he can even raise his weapon or react, Susan turns the tables one last time. She manipulates a hidden failsafe in the ruins and locks Thomas inside a secure, reinforced trap room beneath the rubble.
She doesn't kill him directly, she just locks him in the dark and leaves him there to slowly rot. A final act of cruelty against the corporation that took her child.
And then Susan sets off entirely alone. She walks out into the ash-covered, flesh-eating apocalypse, armed with her unstable vaccine and her immense grief, to hunt down the Blind Corp executives who authorized the Fall Festival drop.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the structural irony of this entire sequence is masterful. It is fundamentally a story about the devastating illusion of control.
Blind Corp thought they had it all figured out.
They thought they were omnipotent. They believed they could script an apocalypse down to the minute. They thought they could manage the variables, distract the local police with fabricated gerbil conspiracies, pacify the town with nostalgia, and contain any physical damage with hidden thermonuclear bombs. They viewed human lives as mere data points on a spreadsheet.
But you can't put human emotion on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. They failed to account for the volatile, deeply unpredictable nature of human grief. Specifically, they couldn't control the sheer destructive force of a mother's vengeance over the loss of her child. Blind Corp built a perfect corporate machine, but human fury threw a wrench into the gears and completely rewrote their ending.
They spent all their resources trying to contain the blast on the surface, never realizing the true explosion was going to come from inside their own boardroom. It is poetic justice, but it is soaked in so much working class tragedy.
It really is.
Let's take a breath and recap this incredible journey we've just been on. We started with the illusion of a quaint seaside town, where a 1950s diner served up classic nostalgia right alongside thermonuclear detonators and eldritch summoning tethers.
Quite the juxtaposition.
We examine how a corporation weaponized language, utilizing sterile corporate jargon to turn a flesh-eating viral apocalypse into a palatable marketing metric called audience engagement. We saw how the invisible, marginalized working class, the traumatized cooks, the eccentric waitresses, the kids grappling with their identity, were the only ones clear-eyed enough to see the literal monsters coming through the fog.
The only ones who saw the truth.
And finally, we witnessed the absolute devastating collapse of Joyceville, culminating in a grieving scientist stealing her dead sister's identity just to tear the corrupt conglomerate down from the inside.
It is a dark, complex, and deeply unsettling narrative. It asks a lot of uncomfortable questions about the nature of power, who controls the narrative of reality, and the heavy price of complicity. And ultimately, it brings the focus right back to you, the listener. The story of Joyceville, underneath all the science fiction and horror, is a stark, urgent reminder to trust your own instincts.
Yes, absolutely.
When the narrative being sold to you by an institution feels a little too polished, a little too quaint, when the forced cheerfulness feels synthetic, or when the literal hawk juice they're telling you to drink tastes like donkey poop, do not ignore your senses.
Don't let the shiny neon signs and the promise of a return to the good old days blind you to the foundation being poured beneath your feet.
Pay close attention to the people on the ground. Listen to the cooks, the waitresses, the busboys, the delivery drivers, the people society actively overlooks and marginalizes. Because those who are excluded from the comforting illusions of power are almost always the ones who see the truth long before the executives in the corner office ever do.
Which leaves us with one final lingering thought for you to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. We talked earlier about how a vintage postcard hides a deeply toxic reality. If a massive corporation with enough money and influence can successfully rebrand the violent, flesh-eating destruction of an entire town as mere audience engagement, what everyday red flags are we completely ignoring right now simply because they've been packaged in the right font and delivered to us with a warm corporate smile? So imagine sitting, oh wait, someone wants to join. Hey, go for it.
Oh, hey there, how can we help?
Hi, this is the writer and author of the show. Just wanted to adjust a little detail. Miss D, Katherine Lynn D, is actually alive as much as Susan. So Susan gives her the vaccine and she comes back to life, and they're both alive post apocalypse. And Catherine is trying to find her sister, and while Susan is working in the shadows, trying to actively destroy Blind Corp.
Oh, wow. Hold on everything.
Wait, is that actually the writer?
It sounds like we have the creator chime in.
That is an incredible detail to add.
So Katherine Lynn D isn't actually dead,
She survived that brutal diner attack.
because Susan used that unstable vaccine.
The same one she used on herself.
Exactly, to bring her sister back.
So they're both out there.
Two sisters, two different paths in the ash.
Catherine is searching for her sister.
While Susan is actively dismantling Blind Corp.
From the shadows, like a ghost.
That completely changes the stakes of the ending.
It makes the betrayal even more layered.
It adds this glimmer of hope.
Or maybe just a longer game.
So here's another suggestion. What do you think this show is gonna go on after this point? Well, Catherine's looking for her missing sister, the answers of Blind Corp, and what happened in Hope Town.
Oh, wow, you're really giving us the roadmap now.
Hopetown. That is the name that keeps coming up.
It's like the dark blueprint for what happened to Joyceville.
Exactly. A precursor where they first buried their mistakes.
So we're following Catherine's hunt for the truth there,
It seems like she's chasing the ghost of her sister.
while Kuzin is burning the corporate ladder down.
This brings a whole new meaning to those demons.
Right, those corporate worshipped entities we were just discussing.
It shatters that illusion of safety even further.
We are conditioned to trust those white picket fences.
And those neon signs for those milkshake stands.
We see golden fries and think we're safe.
But those symbols are just high-end corporate camouflage.
For something completely and utterly devastating beneath us.
Welcome back to our deep dive on Joyceville.
We're dissecting Blind Corp's sinister and catastrophic plans.
Using these fragmented transcripts from the show, excuse us.
Honestly, these documents feel like they're actively lying.
It is total administrative and absolute corporate chaos.
We're figuring out how they manipulated this entire town.
And now, tracing the survival of the D sisters.
Joyceville was really the perfect target for them.
A sleepy town with those deep generational roots.
Perfect for a massive fake revitalization project. Okay, let's unpack this. We have just dived into a collection of narratives that feel less like research documents and more like some kind of corporate fever dream. We were talking about Joyceville, North Carolina, a place where the world seems to be ending, maybe not with a bang, but with like a side order of burnt toast and emotional prepping.
It's truly a chaotic stack of sources. Our mission today really is to cut through all that fragmented drama, the bizarre murders, the sister swaps, sonic weapons,
Right.
and deliver a clear, coherent understanding. Focus on the central entity, Blind Corp, and the conflicts just ripping Joyceville apart.
Okay.
This isn't just about cataloging the weirdness, it's about understanding why this specific brand of corporate horror is so insidious.
Let's start by grounding ourselves in Joyceville itself. This isn't some idyllic small town. It's reeling from trauma.
Definitely.
They've had this bizarre red rainfall over Seahawk Bay that caused temporary blindness, apparently.
Yeah.
And now they're dealing with a wave of just unexplainable, gruesome murders.
And the giant elephant in the room is Blind Corp.
Always Blind Corp.
Yeah, which, despite halting development on major facilities elsewhere because of, quote, unsuccessful outcomes, insists that R&D and operations must continue right here in Joyceville.
That contradiction is key. So, what stands out immediately?
Well, for me, it's the local vernacular. It tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the town's relationship with,
Oh,
well, reality. We absolutely have to define their central piece of slang, donkey poop.
I love that this phrase is so central. It apparently originated with old Farmer Ray and his mule, Waffles.
That's the story. When a city official completely broke a promise about fixing potholes, Ray, in his, farmer wisdom, just looked at the mess and said, that right there's donkey poop. Simple as that.
And now, it's used to everything.
It's the ultimate all-purpose critique. It's the Joyceville way of calling out nonsense, political spin, surveillance, and especially, the bold-faced lies coming straight from Blind Corp.
It's like the perfect dismissal of bureaucratic absurdity. And we are definitely going to need that phrase. Because the deception starts right at Dee's Diner, which seems to be the geographical and emotional nexus of this whole mess.
It really is.
The staff is operating under intense stress, the cook's perpetual bad mood, this fragile relationship between Jimmy and Luna, and the sources confirmed the diner was evaluated.
Right, but that average review they got, it wasn't about the chili, not at all. It was pure donkey poop.
Okay.
The review came from a Blind Corp operation, a recon front, basically checking the mood temperature of the locals, not the, food temperature.
Checking the mood. Wow. And this whole recon effort, bizarrely, is spearheaded by Heartbreak. Is that right?
Yeah, wait, so this massive apocalyptic corporate operation pivots on a guy who got dumped over his grocery store habits.
That feels like maybe the weakest link in their security chain, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about Lieutenant Jackie Miller. He used to be Ernesto Miller.
Oh.
And he got dumped by his fiancée, Katherine Lynn D, because he spent too much time doing this emotional prepping for conversations
Yeah.
while standing in the frozen food aisle.
That specific detail is kind of hilarious, but it actually explains so much about Blind Corp, doesn't it?
It does. Miller applied to their private security division, citing his strategic heartbreak.
Strategic heartbreak.
Yeah. And the sources note he was approved instantly, not because of tactical skill or experience or anything relevant,
But because...
because they appreciated his handwriting.
Oh, come on. Handwriting.
I know. This is the core insight into Blind Corp's operational absurdity, right? They don't seem to value moral soundness or competence. They value bureaucratic compliance and apparently personal trauma.
They want agents who are already emotionally compromised. Easier to control, maybe.
Seems like it. So now Miller is Lieutenant Jackie Miller, sniffing around the diner, presumably still nursing that frozen food aisle wound.
Okay, but the personal drama at the diner, Miller's heartbreak. It's kind of a smokescreen, isn't it? For a deeper, much more shocking plot involving identity theft and revenge.
Exactly. We need to pause and clarify the sister swap because this is absolutely critical for the listener to track.
Agreed. Let's break it down.
Okay. The woman running the diner, who everyone thinks is Lynn D, the owner,
Right?
is actually her sister, Dr. Susan D, operating under Lynn's name.
And Susan has a serious motive.
Oh, yeah. Blind Corp owes her a very old, very bloody debt. Her words.
That debt involves her son, Dylan. He was one of the variables in Blind Corp's toxic programs. Is that right?
That's it. So Susan is using her sister's identity, using the diner as a base, for a deeply personal, targeted act of revenge. She intends to make Blind Corp feel her loss. It's intense.
But the layers of deception just keep piling up because Lynn, the actual diner owner, gets shot.
Right. But Susan saves her life using this unstable, unsynthesized version of the vaccine, whatever that means exactly.
So, unstable vaccine, which means the roles instantly reverse again.
Precisely. The real Lindy is now saved, but clearly not okay, probably altered by this vaccine. And she has to assume the identity of her sister, the scientist, Dr. Susan D,
Why?
to evade the Alpha team that's on its way to investigate all the chaos at the diner.
So the surviving victim has to actively play mind games with her hunters, pretending to be the person who just saved her life and was impersonating her.
It's completely insane. Yeah, the surviving victim has to play mind games with her hunters.
Okay, let's maybe shift gears slightly from the sister drama to the corporate system that kind of enabled all this.
Good idea.
We mentioned Blind Corp is canceling facilities elsewhere, yet R&D continues full steam in Joyceville. And that research is being protected and executed by Squad Bravo, Miller's military wing.
Right, the four-person team he leads. And their dysfunction is practically written into their mission statement. Miller tries to enforce discipline through dissonance, whatever that means.
Discipline through dissonance. Okay, but if you look at the actual team members...
Yeah, analyze the team. It's a tactical unit composed almost entirely of personal failures and compromised people, which seems to be exactly what Blind Corp values.
Like who?
Okay, take Private Moon.
Yeah.
Transfer from Seahawk Bay. Flagged for having ethically flexible but creative problem-solving instincts.
Ethically flexible. Nice corporate speak.
Right. But the key devastating detail here, Moon is Dylan's real mother.
Wait, Dylan, Susan D's son. The variable.
That's the one. Moon is his mother. She's a survivor of the Seahawk Bay chemical weapon testing the incident with the Red Rain, which Blind Corp apparently covered up with fire.
Wow, so she's not just an operative, she's walking evidence. And maybe a co-conspirator in what happened to her own son.
It's incredibly dark. And then there's Sanchez, known as Jake, the rookie.
What's his story?
He actually tried to quit, cited moral incompatibility with chemical warfare.
Good for him, so they let him go.
Nope. His reward was immediate assignment to this squad. Blind Corp apparently uses threats involving cultural food metaphors, whatever that means, it sounds sickening, to keep him terrified and compliant.
Cultural food metaphors. Okay, that's just deeply weird and coercive.
They're all trapped, basically. This dysfunctional compromise squad is tasked with containing a catastrophe known only as the Hawk Initiative. Code HAWKK02.
The Hawk Initiative. Why the Hawk? What does that specific metaphor tell us about Blind Corp's view of control?
Well, it's kind of brilliant in a terrifying way. The hawk is a local bird, right?
Yeah.
Known for vigilance, often seen as a messenger or even just an audience member watching.
Okay.
Blind Corp turned that concept into a program, or maybe a virus, a mechanism for behavioral recalibration. They've weaponized the very idea of watching.
Behavioral recalibration, and the result of this is the population known chillingly as the audience, or sometimes they gone.
That's them. The sources describe them with dull eyes, engaged in this endless chewing motion, just gone.
And Blind Corp refuses to call them infected.
Right. Choosing instead to call them an audience.
Yeah.
Eternally watching the destruction Blind Corp brought, It's the ultimate corporate detachment, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And that level of detachment, that kind of catastrophe, it requires the ultimate tool, I guess.
Exactly. Squad Bravo was tasked with assembling and detonating a specific weapon under code Zeta Blue. This is the 8883.
8083, acoustic disintegration apparatus, model 83.
That's it. And we have to be absolutely clear about what this thing is. It is not a standard explosive.
Yeah.
No, it's a Class 7 containment disruption apparatus. Its function is pure subtle murder. It causes catastrophic neural failure via supersonic vibrations.
Soul melts brains, erases memories, quietly.
Quiet, subtle, total annihilation. Leaves no physical evidence of a bomb blast. And the final irony?
What's that?
This weapon of mass neurological destruction is designed for inconspicuous urban transit. It comes in two cases that look exactly like camping gear.
Camping gear to hide a brain melting device.
Perfectly reflects Blind Corp's whole methodology, right? Horrific secrets hidden under the most mundane facades.
So the mission with this 8083, it reaches its violent climax back at Dee's diner.
Yeah, and the whole system, built on these compromised agents and just layers of absurdity, immediately collapses under pressure. It's a total breakdown.
It happens.
Chaos. The cook, in this moment of desperate martyrdom, tries to set the diner on fire with gasoline and a flare gun.
Oh my God.
Private Moon, already stressed by her connection to Dylan and Seahawk Bay, just panics. And during the chaos, the rookie, Jake, the one who tried to quit based on his morals,
Yeah.
he's shot and killed by his own squad.
Killed by his own team. Futility piled on tragedy. Just awful.
And in the middle of this internal massacre, Lieutenant Miller successfully arms the 8883.
Arms the brain melter? Why?
She believes the Hawk Initiative failed anyway.
Yeah.
That everyone, including herself, is dead already, essentially. So she initiates the final act of erasure. The countdown starts, set to wipe Joyceville off the map.
And then?
And then we get the biggest reversal in the whole source material. The final mission report comes back. Bomb successfully disarmed, donkey poop.
Donkey poop. That slang again, the ultimate dismissal is the clue.
Exactly. Someone powerful enough and connected enough to infiltrate Blind Corp's central detonation protocols overruled the final kill switch.
So, a complete shift in the power dynamic. There's some invisible force at play here, willing to save Joyceville from sonic death, which means they have an interest in keeping the survivors alive.
Yeah, who and why? But while Squad Bravo was imploding, we also need to follow Lynn's journey. The real Lynn D.
Right, she was saved by Susan's unstable vaccine.
Saved, yeah. But her journey quickly descends into the surreal. She's told by Susan, through a note or something, find the next steps in a tin box, whatever that is, and start playing mind games. Fully embrace the persona of the scientist, Dr. Susan D.
And she does.
She tries. Her journey takes her to this collapsed apartment complex. She encounters a survivor who's barely human, calls himself the Dead Bunny King.
The Dead Bunny King, okay.
And Lynn manages to navigate this interaction by trading him a battered tissue box, which the man apparently believes is the lost crown of the foreign friends.
A tissue box for a crown, what does that signify?
Well, it seems thematically crucial, right? Lynn, now operating in this reality totally warped by the vaccine and the Hawk Initiative, realizes that physical currency is useless. Only psychological currency matters now.
Ah.
She successfully engages with the broken social rules by providing the man with the necessary piece of theater, basically. It shows her maybe succeeding where Blind Corp failed through psychological adaptation, not forced recalibration.
Interesting, so she escapes that encounter.
She does, and finds Susan's final cryptic clue, Blame Me Darkness.
Ah.
And then she makes the fateful decision to take a pill labeled Eat Me.
Oh no. Like Alice in Wonderland, but much, much darker.
Exactly. This sends her entirely over the edge. Reality begins to visibly warp for her. Lights look like they belong to another planet. The shadows around her start asking personal, invasive questions.
That sounds terrifying.
And then her sister's warped final voicemail arrives. Glitching, chilling. It says something like, if you get this, well, I guess that means we lost, but maybe you still can.
Maybe you still can win,
Yeah.
survive.
Unclear. But the truly disturbing part is that Lynn realizes the noise, the static from the voicemail. It's coming from the bathroom, right there with her, suggesting the horror is now internal, or it's following her wherever she goes.
Wow. So the Hawk Initiative might have failed in one sense with the bomb, but its effects are still spreading psychologically.
That seems to be the implication, yeah.
So what does this all mean when we put it together? We've looked at the density, the layers of Joyceville. The story isn't just a list of weird events, is it?
No, not at all. It's really an illustration of how corporate control, especially when it's built on bureaucratic absurdity and strategically leveraging personal trauma, how it's ultimately vulnerable.
Because the agents weren't loyal.
Exactly. The entire system implodes because the agents are driven by their own personal vendettas. Susan's bloody debt, Miller's heartbreak, Moon's complicated motherhood, rather than any real loyalty to Blind Corp.
So Blind Corp's attempt to weaponize human failings backfired. Turned their own military unit into the catalyst for disaster.
Pretty much, yeah. It cannibalized itself from the inside.
Okay. And as we close out this deep dive, we have to return to that moment of power transfer, that final message. Bomb successfully disarmed Donkey Poop.
Right.
Blind Corp was ready to erase an entire pound using this subtle, horrifying sonic weapon to contain its secrets. But someone or something had the capability to remotely access and shut down the ultimate detonation protocol.
Which leaves us with the big question. If the entity that stopped the bomb isn't Blind Corp, and it's capable of overruling their ultimate containment effort.
What do they want?
Exactly. They save the town from immediate sonic death, sure. But what hidden agenda does this unknown power have for the survivors?
Were they saved from annihilation only to become the next round of variables in some far larger ongoing experiment?
It's definitely something to consider. Who holds the power now? And what do they plan to do with Joyceville? A chilling thought to end on.
Usually on The Explainer, we're breaking down complex theories or historical events. But today is different. Today, we're piecing together a terrifying puzzle from my own, honestly, heavily traumatized, fragmented memories. We're looking at the complete overnight eradication of a tiny North Carolina town called Joyceville. So buckle up, because I'm inviting you to step right into the nightmare that swallowed my home. To really grasp what happened, you have to understand what Joyceville was. Think mid-century Americana, wide picket fences, super friendly neighbors, and that amazing smell of sizzling bacon from the super awesome diner just wafting through the morning air. But as they say, beneath Joyceville's charming facade lie of a web of intrigue that would make any big city jealous. And man, it was the perfect illusion, because the reality, it was creeping, and it was deeply sinister. While we were all up top, right? Enjoying homemade cherry pies by the serene waterfront, Joyceville was secretly functioning as the headquarters for Blind Corp. Literally right beneath our feet, there was this massive underground nightmare of shadow operations and horrific, secretive experiments. Trying to make sense of scattered memories is tough. So I've actually laid out a chronological timeline for us. It really starts years ago, when Blind Corp quietly set up shop. Then, there's this massive acceleration point at exactly 5 a.m. one random morning. From there, it escalates to the climax at our fall festival, and then the town just vanishes overnight. Let's walk through exactly how we lost everything so fast. So let's zoom in on that 5 a.m. shift at the super awesome diner. I remember this specifically because we were forced to clock in exceptionally early. Blind Corp had mandated this massive town-wide shipment of a brand new energy drink they called Hawk Juice. At the time, honestly, it just felt like a massive corporate annoyance. We had no idea it was the first domino in our catastrophic end. The level of deception here, just hiding in plain sight, was absolutely staggering. Hawk Juice was never just a beverage. Step 1, they market it to us as this harmless, heavily discounted energy drink. Step 2, they use the physical shipping boxes to covertly move bomb components, literal devices that go boom, right into the heart of town. And step 3, the drink itself was a biological vector. Looking back on it now, the dark humor of it all is just kind of hard to shake. Around town, our go-to phrase for absolute nonsense was donkey poop. And we quickly realized the marketing hype around Hawk Juice was exactly that. It tasted absolutely terrible. We were standing around joking about how bad it was, completely oblivious that we were literally handling the first wave of a deadly viral payload. So what on earth was the end game here? Well, it all traces back to the Hawk Initiative. That stands for human augmentation and weaponization kinetics. The files we eventually dug up revealed this deeply guarded corporate project focused on manipulating human DNA. It was all about creating living weapons, a secret so incredibly dark that Blind Corp scientists like Adelamore Russets were allegedly silenced the moment they tried to blow the whistle. And the impact of these experiments, it's hard to even talk about. The Hawk virus didn't just give you a fever. It triggered rapid genetic alteration, leading to these uncontrollable, horrific physical mutations. The corporate goal was creating a living weapon, but the human cost was the complete and utter loss of humanity. All those frantic, hushed rumors we used to whisper in the diner booths, they turned out to be deadly true. We were suddenly looking at flesh-eating, mindless monsters, zombies, essentially. But of course, Blind Corp absolutely refused to use that word. In this chilling, totally sterile display of corporate rebranding, they actually called our infected neighbors audience members. To the executives, they were just silent witnesses who are ascending to a higher evolutionary state for some grand performance. I mean, just let this quote from a Blind Corp executive really sink in for a second. Sure, there were some unfortunate outcomes, but isn't that the price we pay when reaching for the unknown? Unfortunate outcomes. They viewed us, my friends, my family, not as human beings, but as completely disposable variables in their little profitable equation. Which brings us right to the climax, the first annual fall festival. My memory sharpens into pure terror right around here because this was ground zero. The whole town was out, thrilled about pie-eating contests and carnival rides, totally oblivious that Blind Corp was using the event as a massive open-air testing ground. This conspiracy reached its horrific apex when they quite literally weaponized the weather. Step 1. Distract everyone with a fun carnival. Step 2. As this huge storm rolled over Seahawk Bay, they integrated an aerosolized strain of the Hawk virus directly into the rainfall. You guys, it literally rained red. And step 3. The executives just sat back and observed mass mutation happening in real time. The immediate aftermath, it wasn't explosions or military sirens like you'd see in a movie. It was just this suffocating, heavy silence. I'll never forget the haunting imagery of the very next day. Shops that were bustling mere hours ago were just empty with shattered windows, front doors swinging open in the breeze, dinners left half-eaten on tables. My entire community was simply erased. But, you know, that silence didn't last long. I vividly remember the visceral, stomach-churning dread of those final days on the surface. My former neighbors started launching these unprovoked, incredibly violent attacks. They moved with these jerky, animalistic strides, their eyes completely hollow and unseeing. We weren't citizens anymore. We were prey being hunted like meat through the streets of our own hometown. 6 months. That is exactly how long I spent trapped underground in the gray, freezing metallic confines of the Terminal C bunker. 6 months of breathing recycled air, huddled under thin blankets, dealing with this crushing, absolute isolation. Down there in the dark, I was just constantly haunted by the fragmented memories we've been exploring, constantly wondering if there was anything left up above. When we finally managed to crack open those heavy blast doors and ascend to the surface, the dread only compounded because we didn't find rescue. We found ash, echoes, and ruins. Joyceville was nothing but a burnt skeleton, completely covered in thick gray dust. The diner was rubble. My beautiful town had become a graveyard. Joyceville was targeted because we were quiet, we were trusting, and we were out of the way. We were the perfect blind spot for unchecked corporate greed and horrific, unchecked experimentation. It really makes you wonder about the serene, picturesque little places in your own world, doesn't it? So, as I wrap up sharing my story on this explainer, I want to leave you with this chilling thought. What secrets might be buried under your town? Keep your eyes open.
Everything's simple, everything's right. Just trust in the rhythm, trust in the sound. The happiest life is the one that we found. When the world